Welcome, weary traveller, to Sleepless Survivors. Tonight, we journey together into the ancient mists of time, to a world where gods walked among mortals and priests held the keys to knowledge beyond human comprehension. Let your mind drift as we explore the mysterious Anunnaki priests, the keepers of sacred wisdom in the cradle of civilization. Close your eyes now. Breathe deeply. Allow the tensions of your day to melt away like morning dew beneath the Mesopotamian sun. You are safe here. You are supported. And as we travel back through millennia, let each word carry you deeper into restful tranquility. In the beginning, before the great cities rose from the fertile plains between two rivers, there existed knowledge. Ancient knowledge. Knowledge that predated human memory, whispered through the cosmos and carried down to earth by beings the Sumerians called the Anunnaki. The word itself carries weight across time. Anunnaki. Those who from heaven to earth came. But our story tonight is not merely of these enigmatic beings themselves. No, we focus on those who served them, who preserved their wisdom, who stood at the threshold between the divine and the mortal. We speak of the priests. Imagine, if you will, the world as it was 5,000 years ago. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, lush and green, cradled the first great civilizations. Here, in ancient Sumer, humanity took its first tentative steps toward complexity, toward culture, toward consciousness of something greater than mere survival. The sun rises over the ziggurat, that massive stepped pyramid dominating the skyline of Eridu, the oldest city in Sumer. The air is cool in these pre-dawn hours, carrying the scent of the rivers and the distant marshlands. Birds begin their morning chorus as the first light touches the uppermost platform of the temple, where the priests have already begun their sacred duties. These were not priests as we might imagine them today. They were not simply religious figures offering comfort and moral guidance to their communities. No, the Anunnaki priests were something far more profound. They were scholars, astronomers, mathematicians, physicians, architects, and scribes. They were the keepers of all knowledge, the bridge between heaven and earth, between the gods and humanity. Let your breathing slow now. Feel yourself sinking deeper into comfort as we explore their world. The high priest rises before dawn, as he has done every day of his service. His chambers within the ziggurat complex are simple yet dignified, befitting his station. The walls are lined with clay tablets, each one inscribed with cuneiform script, each one containing fragments of the vast knowledge he's sworn to preserve and protect. He performs his ablutions with water drawn from the sacred well, water that, according to tradition, connects to the Abzu, the primordial underground ocean of fresh water, the domain of Enki, the god of wisdom. Every action is ritualized. Every movement carries meaning. This is not mere superstition. This is the careful preservation of traditions handed down through countless generations, traditions that the priests believe originated with the Anunnaki themselves. As the priest dresses in his ceremonial robes, white linen symbolizing purity, he contemplates the duties that await him this day. There are offerings to be made, rituals to be performed, students to be taught, and always, always the endless task of preserving and expanding the temple's knowledge. The ziggurat itself is a marvel of ancient engineering. Rising in great stepped levels toward the sky, it serves as temple, observatory, administrative centre, and school. Its very architecture encodes mathematical and astronomical knowledge. The angles of its steps, the proportions of its levels, the orientation toward the cardinal directions, all of this reflects the sophisticated understanding the priests possessed of geometry and the heavens. Breathe deeply. Let the ancient world take shape around you in the theatre of your mind. The temple complex bustles with activity as the sun climbs higher. Junior priests hurry about their duties. Some tend to the sacred gardens where medicinal herbs grow in carefully maintained beds. Others prepare offerings of bread, beer, and dates for the daily rituals. Still others sit in the scribal school, their wooden styluses moving across wet clay tablets as they practice the hundreds of cuneiform signs they must master. Our high priest makes his way through the complex, acknowledging the greetings of those he passes with a dignified nod. He climbs the steps of the ziggurat slowly, reverently, pausing at each level to recite the prayers appropriate to that station. Each level represents a step closer to the divine, a progression from the earthly to the heavenly. At the summit, the morning light is brilliant. From here, the priest can see the entire city spread below. The network of canals that bring life-giving water to the fields, the walls that protect the inhabitants, the houses of mud brick clustered along the streets and beyond, the green fields of barley stretching to the horizon. But the priest's attention is not on the earthly city. His gaze turns upward to the heavens, that vast celestial dome where the gods dwell, and where the secrets of time itself are written in the movements of the stars and planets. The Anunnaki priests were master astronomers. They observed the night sky with a dedication and precision that would not be matched for thousands of years. They knew that the heavens operated according to regular, predictable patterns. They tracked the movements of the sun, the moon, the 5 visible planets, and the fixed stars. They understood the cycles of eclipses. They developed sophisticated mathematical systems to predict celestial events. Why did they devote such enormous energy to watching the sky? The answer reveals much about their worldview. To the Anunnaki priests, the heavens were not merely the realm of the gods. The heavens were a vast cosmic clock, a divine calendar, a book written by the Anunnaki themselves to guide humanity through the cycles of time. Let yourself relax even deeper now. Feel the wisdom of ages settling over you like a warm blanket. In the temple archives, stored in a specially built room protected from moisture and light, were hundreds of clay tablets recording astronomical observations spanning centuries. New observations were added constantly, each one carefully compared to the historical records, each one helping to refine the priest's understanding of celestial mechanics. These observations had practical applications. The agricultural calendar depended on precise knowledge of the seasons. Knowing when to plant and when to harvest could mean the difference between abundance and famine. The priests used their astronomical knowledge to create accurate calendars, advising the farmers when to flood their fields, when to sow their seeds, when to expect the harvest. But there was more to it than mere practicality. The priests believed that the movements of the heavens influenced events on Earth. The positions of the planets and stars at significant moments, the birth of a king, the founding of a city, the beginning of a military campaign, could reveal the will of the gods, the favour or disfavour of the Anunnaki. This was the birth of astrology, though it was nothing like the simplified sun sign astrology familiar to us today. The astrology of the Anunnaki priests was a sophisticated interpretive system requiring years of study to master. It was inseparable from astronomy, from mathematics, from their understanding of divine will and cosmic order. The morning rituals proceed with practiced precision. The priest enters the inner sanctuary where the statue of the city's patron deity resides. This statue is not merely a symbol. According to the beliefs of the time, it is the actual dwelling place of the god on earth, imbued with divine presence through elaborate consecration ceremonies. The priest approaches with reverence, speaking the ancient words of greeting. He offers food and drink, clothing and incense. These are not symbolic gestures, but actual provisions for the god. The deity must be fed, must be clothed, must be honoured with sweet-smelling offerings. In return, the god provides protection and prosperity to the city and its inhabitants. After the morning offerings, the priest spends hours in study. The knowledge preserved in the temple archives is vast and varied. There are texts on medicine, listing hundreds of ailments and their treatments. There are mathematical tablets demonstrating complex calculations. There are literary works, myths and legends that encode both entertainment and instruction. There are legal documents, recording contracts and judgments, and there are ritual texts, explaining in minute detail how each ceremony must be performed. Drift now, let the weight of the body sink into peaceful stillness. The medical knowledge of the Anunnaki priests was remarkably advanced. They had identified hundreds of medicinal plants and understood their properties. They could set broken bones, stitch wounds, and even perform rudimentary surgery. Their diagnostic techniques involved careful observation of symptoms, and their treatment protocols combined herbal remedies with ritual purification. They understood that many ailments had natural causes, but they also believed that illness could result from spiritual imbalance or divine displeasure. Thus, treatment often combined practical medicine with ritual intervention. A patient might receive both an herbal poultice for a wound and prayers to drive away the demons of disease. The priests developed specialized knowledge in different areas. Some focused on astronomy and mathematics, others specialized in medicine. Still others became expert in the interpretation of omens, reading divine messages in the patterns of oil on water, the flight of birds, the organs of sacrificed animals, or the movements of smoke. but all priests received extensive training in the scribal arts. In a world where literacy was rare, the ability to read and write cuneiform script set the priests apart as educated elites. The script itself was complex, with hundreds of signs that could represent syllables, whole words, or even abstract concepts depending on context. Mastering it required years of study, beginning in childhood. In the scribal school attached to the temple, young boys, occasionally girls from elite families, sat in rows, their clay tablets before them, copying standard texts under the watchful eyes of their teachers. They began with simple signs, the most common words and syllables. Gradually they progressed to more complex texts, to literary works, to mathematical problems, to the sacred writings. The curriculum was demanding. Students who showed promise in particular areas might be selected for advanced training in astronomy, medicine, or ritual practice. The very best might eventually join the ranks of the temple priesthood, dedicating their lives to the service of the gods and the preservation of knowledge. Let the story wash over you. Feel yourself becoming part of this ancient world. The afternoon brings different duties. The high priest must attend to administrative matters. The temple is not only a religious institution, but an economic powerhouse. It owns vast tracts of land, worked by tenant farmers who pay rent in grain and livestock. It employs craftsmen who produce textiles, pottery, and metalwork. It lends grain to farmers in need, charging interest. It manages long-distance trade, sending caravans to distant lands to exchange surplus goods for precious materials unavailable locally. All of these activities must be recorded, and the priests are the record keepers. They maintain elaborate accounts, tracking every shekel of silver, every bushel of grain, every sheep and goat. The clay tablets recording these transactions fill entire rooms in the temple complex, an archive of economic activity spanning generations. This administrative role gave the priests enormous power and influence. They controlled significant wealth. They possessed knowledge and skills that others lacked. They served as advisors to kings and nobles. They were the educated class in societies where education was rare and precious. Yet with this power came responsibility. The priests saw themselves as stewards, not owners. The temple's wealth belonged ultimately to the gods. The knowledge they preserved was a sacred trust. They were keepers, guardians, preservers. Their duty was to maintain and pass on what they had received from their predecessors, who'd received it from their predecessors, in an unbroken chain stretching back to the time when the Anunnaki themselves walked the earth. This belief in their role as preservers of ancient Anunnaki knowledge shaped everything the priests did. They did not see themselves as innovators or inventors. Rather, they were recovering, maintaining, and interpreting knowledge that had been given to humanity by the gods in the distant past. When they made astronomical observations, they believed they were reading the divine calendar established by the Anunnaki. When they practiced medicine, they used techniques taught by Enki, the god of wisdom. When they built temples, they followed architectural principles laid down in primordial times. All knowledge was, in essence, revealed knowledge, given by the gods and maintained by the priests. Your breathing is slow and steady now. Your muscles are relaxed. You're drifting in the peaceful space between waking and sleeping. As evening approaches, the high priest returns to his study. The light slants through the high windows, illuminating dust motes in the air. He selects a tablet from his personal collection and begins to read. It is one of the ancient texts, a copy of a copy of a copy, stretching back through the generations to a time beyond memory. The text describes the creation of humanity. According to this account, the Anunnaki gods found the work of maintaining the earth burdensome. They laboured endlessly, digging canals, building cities, growing food. The lesser gods, the Agigi, complained of their toil. A crisis loomed. Enki, the wise god, proposed a solution. He would create a new being to serve the gods, to take over the burdensome labour. Using clay mixed with the blood of a slain god, Enki and the mother goddess Ninhursag fashioned the first humans. These new creatures would work the land, tend the gardens, maintain the cities, and provide offerings to the gods. But Enki did more than create slaves. He gave humanity certain gifts. He taught them agriculture, showing them how to cultivate barley and dates. He taught them animal husbandry, how to raise sheep and cattle. He gave them the arts of civilization, writing, mathematics, music, craftsmanship. He revealed to them the principles of law and justice. In short, Enki, who the priests considered the chief patron of their order, gave humanity knowledge. and he established the priesthood to be the guardians of that knowledge, the intermediaries between gods and humans, the teachers who would pass on the divine wisdom to each new generation. This myth was not, to the priests, merely a story. It was sacred history, the explanation of their origin and purpose. They were the spiritual descendants of those first priests taught by Enki himself. The knowledge they preserved had come down from the gods. Their duty was to maintain it, to study it, to apply it for the benefit of humanity. Let your thoughts become soft and formless. Allow the ancient wisdom to settle into your consciousness like sediment drifting to the bottom of a still pond. The high priest sets aside the tablet as darkness falls. The temple complex quiets as the day's activities wind down. Lamps are lit, their flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. The scent of burning oil mingles with the lingering fragrance of incense from the day's rituals. But the priest's work is not finished. Tonight is special. The moon is full, and there are celestial observations to be made. He climbs once more to the top of the ziggurat, where other astronomers' priests are already assembling their instruments. These instruments are simple by modern standards but effective. Measuring sticks marked with regular divisions, water clocks to time events precisely, sighting tools to determine the positions of celestial bodies relative to fixed points on the horizon. Most importantly, there are the records, tablets documenting observations going back centuries, providing the historical data necessary to identify patterns and make predictions. The priests work in quiet concentration, measuring angles, noting positions, recording data on prepared tablets. They track the movement of planets against the background stars. They measure the moon's position. They note any unusual phenomena, a particularly bright meteor, the appearance of a comet, the colour and clarity of the atmosphere. All of this data will be added to the archives, compared with historical records, analysed for patterns. Over time, these patient observations revealed the regularities of the heavens, the cycles of the moon, the apparent movement of the sun through the zodiac, the periodic retrograde motions of the planets, the precession of the equinoxes. The priests developed mathematical models to describe and predict these celestial movements. They created detailed tables showing the expected positions of the moon and planets for years into the future. They could predict eclipses with impressive accuracy. This knowledge, gained through centuries of careful observation and preserved in the temple archives, represented one of humanity's first great scientific achievements. Feel yourself floating now, suspended in the peaceful darkness, as timeless as the stars the ancient priests observed. The hours pass. The moon climbs higher in the sky, bathing the ziggurat in silver light. The priests continue their observations, occasionally conferring in low voices, checking their measurements against the historical tablets. Around midnight they pause their work to perform a brief ritual, honouring the moon god Sin, and offering prayers for clear skies and steady hands. Then they return to their observations, working until the early hours of the morning when the moon sets in the west and the eastern sky begins to pale with the approach of dawn. As the priests descend from the ziggurat, they carry with them new data, new confirmations of ancient patterns, new pieces in the vast puzzle of understanding the divine clockwork of the heavens. This data will be carefully inscribed on clay tablets, duplicated for safety, and added to the temple archives where it will remain accessible to future generations of priest scholars. This dedication to recording and preserving knowledge was perhaps the greatest legacy of the Anunnaki priests. They were not content to simply know things themselves. They felt compelled to write it down, to preserve it, to ensure that future generations would have access to the accumulated wisdom of the past. The clay tablet was their technology of choice for knowledge preservation, and it proved remarkably effective. Unlike papyrus or paper, which decay over time, clay tablets, once baked or naturally hardened, are nearly indestructible. They can survive fire, flood, and burial in the earth for millennia. Today, hundreds of thousands of these tablets survive in museums and archaeological collections, silent witnesses to the knowledge-keeping activities of the ancient priests. Your mind is quiet now, peaceful, drifting in the gentle currents of rest. Let us consider the daily life of a junior priest, newly initiated into the mysteries of the temple. His name is Naram Sin, and he is 16 years old. He has spent the past 8 years in the scribal school, mastering the complexities of cuneiform writing. He has demonstrated particular aptitude in mathematics, and his teachers have recommended him for advanced training in astronomical observation and calculation. Naram-Sin rises each morning before dawn, joining the other junior priests in the ritual purification before beginning the day's duties. He assists in the morning offerings, carrying water, arranging bread on the offering tables, ensuring that the censers are properly filled with incense. After the morning rituals, he attends lectures given by the senior priests. Today's lesson concerns the calculation of the lunar calendar. The priests use a lunar-solar calendar, meaning it must reconcile the cycles of the moon with the solar year. This is mathematically complex, as 12 lunar months fall short of a full solar year by about 11 days. The solution the priests developed was to insert an extra month every few years, keeping the calendar aligned with the seasons. But determining exactly when to insert this intercalary month requires careful observation and calculation. The senior priest explains the principles, referencing historical tablets that show how the calculation has been performed for centuries. Naram-Sin listens intently, taking notes on his personal tablet. He is learning not just the mechanics of the calculation, but the reasoning behind it, the astronomical observations that make it necessary, the historical development of the system. He is learning to think like a priest scholar, to see the connections between different areas of knowledge, to understand the deep patterns underlying the surface phenomena. In the afternoon, Naram-Sin practices his calculations under the supervision of a master astronomer. He's given hypothetical data about the positions of the moon and sun, and must determine whether an intercalary month should be added to the calendar. He works through the mathematics carefully, checking his work against the standard tables. The master astronomer reviews his calculations, corrects his errors, explains his mistakes. Slowly, through repeated practice, Naram-Sin's skill grows. Rest now. Let the story continue to unfold without effort. But Naram-Sin's education includes more than mathematics and astronomy. He must also learn the ritual practices of the priesthood, the proper forms of prayer and offering, the sacred hymns that must be recited at appropriate times. He must study the mythological texts, learning the stories of the gods, their relationships, their attributes, their sacred sites. He must learn the interpretive arts, how to read omens in natural phenomena, how to understand the messages the gods send through signs and portents. This is not superstition to the young priest. It is a sophisticated system of interpretation based on centuries of observation and correlation. If a particular pattern in the liver of a sacrificed sheep consistently appears before military victories, then that pattern becomes a positive omen for warfare. If a certain configuration of planets in the sky tends to precede periods of abundance, then that configuration is interpreted as a favourable sign. The priests maintain vast databases of omens and their correlations, constantly testing and refining their interpretive framework. Modern scholars debate the nature of this omen interpretation. Was it purely superstitious, seeing patterns where none existed? Or was it an early form of empirical reasoning, collecting data and drawing conclusions based on observed correlations? Perhaps it was something of both, a sincere attempt to find meaning and predictability in a complex and often chaotic world, using the cognitive tools and assumptions available at the time. What is clear is that the priests took it seriously, devoted enormous resources to it, and believed deeply in its validity. Kings consulted the omen priests before major decisions. Campaigns were launched or delayed based on the reading of signs. The priests' role as interpreters of divine will gave them significant political influence. Let the gentle current of the story carry you deeper into tranquility. As months turn to years, Naram-Sin progresses in his training. He is eventually entrusted with conducting observations on his own, carefully recording the positions of celestial bodies, and adding his data to the temple archives. He assists in the interpretation of omens, learning to recognize the significant patterns. He teaches younger students, passing on the knowledge he has gained. By his mid-20s, Naram-Sin is considered a fully qualified priest astronomer. He has access to the full resources of the temple archives. He participates in the discussions among the senior priests about calendrical adjustments, ritual innovations, interpretations of unusual celestial phenomena. He has become part of the unbroken chain of knowledge keepers, linking the present to the ancient past when the Anunnaki walked the earth. His life is not one of luxury, but it is comfortable and secure. He has status and respect in the community. He has the satisfaction of engaging in meaningful work that he believes serves both the gods and humanity. And he has the profound privilege of spending his days in the pursuit of knowledge, exploring the mysteries of the heavens and preserving the wisdom of ages. This was the life of the Anunnaki priests, a life dedicated to knowledge, to ritual, to the maintenance of the relationship between heaven and earth. In a world of uncertainty and danger, they provided stability and meaning. They were the memory of their civilizations, preserving the accumulated experience and wisdom of the past and making it available to the present and future. Your breathing is deep and regular. Your body is completely at rest. You are safe in this ancient world, protected by the wisdom of the ages. The temple archives were treasure houses of knowledge, and access to them was carefully controlled. Not every priest could enter the innermost chambers where the most sacred and ancient texts were kept. These texts were considered too powerful, too important, too potentially dangerous to be casually available. Among the most closely guarded texts were those known as the Emeh, a Sumerian term roughly translating as divine powers or divine attributes. The Emeh were more than just knowledge. They were the fundamental principles that structured civilization itself. They included abstract concepts like kingship, justice, and wisdom, as well as practical arts like metalworking, writing, and music. According to mythology, the Mes were originally held by Enki in his temple at Eridu. The goddess Inanna famously tricked Enki into giving her the Mes, which she then took to her own city of Uruk, explaining why Uruk became a great centre of civilization. This myth reflects the priest's understanding that knowledge could be transferred, that civilizational achievements could be learned and spread. The priests saw themselves as the guardians of the Mes, maintaining and transmitting the essential knowledge that allowed civilization to function. Without their efforts, they believed, chaos would return. The arts would be forgotten. The calendar would drift out of alignment with the seasons. The proper relationship with the gods would be disrupted. The social order itself would collapse. This was not mere self-importance. In a very real sense, the priests were correct. They were the literate class in largely illiterate societies. They maintained the administrative systems that allowed complex economies to function. They preserved the agricultural knowledge necessary for survival. They trained each new generation in the skills and practices that defined civilized life. When these societies eventually collapsed, as all ancient civilizations eventually did, it was often because the knowledge-keeping systems broke down. Wars disrupted the temple complexes. Economic crises undermined their resource base. Conquering peoples imposed new languages and new gods. The chain of transmission was broken, and knowledge was lost. Let yourself drift deeper still. Feel the weight of history, the long span of human endeavour, the precious thread of knowledge passed down through countless generations. Consider the physical space of the temple archive itself. Imagine a large room with high ceilings, cool and dim even during the heat of the day. The walls are lined with shelves, and on these shelves are arranged thousands of clay tablets. Some are small, palm-sized, containing brief texts or single calculations. Others are large, requiring both hands to hold comfortably, inscribed with lengthy compositions. The tablets are organised systematically. Astronomical observations are kept together, arranged chronologically. Mathematical texts are grouped by topic, geometry in one section, calculation of areas in another, numerical tables in a third. Medical texts are organised by the type of ailment they address. Literary works occupy their own section, including the great mythological epics that define the culture's understanding of the gods and the cosmos. At the centre of the room sits a priest scribe, copying an ancient tablet that has begun to deteriorate. This is crucial work. Clay tablets, while durable, are not eternal. Over time, they can crack, crumble, become illegible. The only way to preserve their contents is to make new copies, carefully reproducing every sign, every line, maintaining perfect accuracy. The scribe works slowly and methodically. He has the ancient tablet before him, and a fresh, wet clay tablet on which he inscribes his copy. He must be absolutely precise. A single incorrect sign could change the meaning of the text. He is not merely preserving information, he is maintaining an unbroken link to the past, ensuring that the knowledge recorded by priests who lived centuries ago will remain accessible to priests who will live centuries hence. This work of copying and preserving texts was endless. It was also sacred. The scribes believed they were maintaining the memory of the gods themselves, preserving the knowledge the Anunnaki had revealed to humanity. To allow this knowledge to be lost through neglect would be a betrayal of the highest order. Rest, breathe. Let the ancient world support you in perfect peace. The priests also created new knowledge, though they might not have described it that way. Each generation of astronomers added new observations to the historical record, slowly improving the accuracy of predictions. Physicians experimented with new combinations of herbs and new treatment protocols, carefully noting the results. Mathematicians developed new calculation techniques, new ways of solving problems. But even this innovation was framed as recovery rather than invention. When a priest developed a new mathematical technique, he might attribute it to divine inspiration, claiming that the god Enki had revealed it to him in a dream. Or he might claim to have found it in an ancient damaged tablet that he had painstakingly reconstructed. This reluctance to claim credit for innovation reflects a fundamentally different understanding of knowledge than we hold today. We celebrate originality and innovation. We give credit to individual inventors and discoverers, but the Anunnaki priests saw knowledge as something given, revealed, ancestral. The highest achievement was not to create something new, but to preserve and transmit what was ancient. There is something profoundly humble in this view. It acknowledges that we are all part of a chain stretching back into the mists of time and forward into an unknown future. It recognizes that our individual contributions are small compared to the accumulated wisdom of generations. It emphasizes our responsibility to those who came before and those who will come after. As the years passed and centuries accumulated, the temple archives grew ever larger. Tablets filled room after room. Catalogues were maintained listing the contents and locations of texts. Scribes specialized in particular sections of the archive, becoming experts in specific domains of knowledge. Senior priests spent years studying in the archives, mastering the accumulated wisdom of their tradition. The most learned among them could quote from memory vast passages of ancient texts. They could recall astronomical data from centuries past. They could trace the development of ideas and practices across the generations. Your mind is peaceful, your body is at rest, you're held in the gentle embrace of history. Let us journey to another city, to Babylon, which in later centuries became the greatest centre of learning in Mesopotamia. By the time of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, around 600 BCE, the tradition of the Anunnaki priest had evolved and developed for thousands of years. The great ziggurat of Babylon, Etemenanki, the foundation of heaven and earth, rose in 7 stages to a height of over 90 meters. At its summit was the shrine of Marduk, the patron god of Babylon, who had risen to become chief of the Mesopotamian pantheon. The temple complex surrounding the ziggurat was vast, employing thousands of people, controlling enormous wealth, and housing the most extensive archives in the ancient world. The priests of Babylon had access to texts brought from all over Mesopotamia. When cities were conquered, their libraries were often seized and transported to Babylon. The priests collected texts obsessively, seeking out rare and ancient tablets, copying them for their archives. This accumulation of texts allowed for comparative study. Priests could examine different versions of the same myth from different cities and eras, noting variations and developments. They could compare astronomical observations from different locations. They could trace the evolution of medical practices over time. This comparative approach sometimes led to the recognition of contradictions and inconsistencies. Different traditions attributed the same cosmic events to different gods. Different cities had different versions of the creation story. Astronomical observations from different eras, when accumulated, revealed that celestial cycles were more complex than earlier priests had understood. How did the priests respond to these contradictions? Mostly they tried to harmonize them, to find ways of understanding how apparently conflicting accounts could both be true. They developed sophisticated interpretive techniques, recognizing that text could have multiple layers of meaning, that mythological language was symbolic rather than literal, that truth could be expressed in different ways for different purposes. Let the complexity and depth of ancient thought wash over you. Feel your respect for these long-ago thinkers growing even as you sink deeper into rest. The Babylonian priests developed increasingly sophisticated mathematical techniques. They created detailed ephemerides, tables showing the expected positions of celestial bodies for years into the future. They developed methods for predicting the first and last visibility of the moon, crucial for maintaining the lunar calendar. They even developed early forms of algebra, solving problems that we would recognise as quadratic equations. Their motivation for this mathematical development was primarily astronomical and calendrical, but the techniques they developed had broader applications. Mathematical knowledge was applied to surveying land, calculating volumes of grain stores, determining fair divisions of inheritances, and many other practical problems. The priests also developed a sophisticated understanding of place value notation in mathematics, using a base 60 system that we still preserve in our measurement of time and angles. The choice of base 60, while seeming arbitrary to us, had practical advantages. 60 is highly composite, divisible by many small numbers, making calculations involving fractions much easier. This mathematical sophistication reached its height in the final centuries BCE, during the Seleucid period after Alexander the Great's conquest. During this era, Babylonian priest astronomers produced astronomical texts of remarkable complexity and accuracy. These texts would eventually influence Greek astronomy, and, through that channel, the entire subsequent development of Western science. But even as the Babylonian priests reached their peak of astronomical and mathematical achievement, their world was changing in ways that would ultimately prove fatal to their tradition. Let yourself float in the stream of history. No effort is required, just listening, just drifting. The conquests of Alexander the Great in the 330s BCE brought Mesopotamia into a larger Hellenistic world. Greek became the language of administration and high culture. Greek philosophical and scientific ideas began to circulate among educated Babylonians. The old Sumerian and Akkadian languages, already archaic, became even more removed from everyday use. The priests adapted to these changes. Some learned Greek. They translated their astronomical knowledge into Greek, making it accessible to Hellenistic scholars. They engaged with Greek philosophical ideas, finding sometimes surprising parallels with their own traditions. But the fundamental basis of their tradition was under threat. The temples were losing their economic power. New administrative systems, imported from Greece and later Rome, took over many of the functions the temples had once performed. Literacy was spreading beyond the priestly class, breaking their monopoly on reading and writing. Most crucially, the religious worldview that had sustained the priestly tradition for millennia was being challenged. Greek philosophy offered naturalistic explanations for phenomena the Babylonians had attributed to divine action. Monotheistic religions, Judaism and later Christianity, rejected the entire pantheon of Mesopotamian gods. By the early centuries of the Common Era, the tradition of the Anunnaki priests was dying. The last known cuneiform text that can be precisely dated was written in 75 CE. The temples fell into disuse. The ziggurat of Babylon crumbled into ruins. The clay tablets, their inscriptions no longer readable by anyone, were buried in the ruins or scattered across the landscape. For nearly 2,000 years, the knowledge of the Anunnaki priests was forgotten. The tablets lay buried beneath the sands of Iraq. The sites of the great cities were marked only by mounds of earth. The cuneiform script could not be read. The entire civilization had vanished from human memory, surviving only in garbled references in Greek and Hebrew texts. But knowledge, once created, has a strange persistence. It wants to survive. It leaves traces. You're deeply relaxed now, profoundly at peace. The story continues, but you need not strain to follow. Let it wash over you like a gentle tide. In the 19th century, European archaeologists began excavating the tells of Mesopotamia, those great mounds that mark the sites of ancient cities. They uncovered palaces and temples. They found thousands upon thousands of clay tablets, preserved by the dry climate and the durability of baked clay. At first, no one could read these tablets. The cuneiform script was entirely unknown. But gradually, through painstaking comparison of inscriptions in multiple languages, scholars began to decipher it. The Old Persian section of the Behistun inscription, written in a simpler form of cuneiform, provided the key. From there, scholars could work out the values of the signs in Akkadian cuneiform and eventually in Sumerian. As the tablets were read, an entire civilization sprang back into view. The myths and legends, the astronomical observations, the mathematical texts, the medical treatises, the administrative records, all of it began to speak again after millennia of silence. The modern scholars who read these texts found themselves astonished by what they revealed. The sophistication of Babylonian astronomy, the complexity of Sumerian literature, the advanced mathematics, the detailed medical knowledge, none of this had been suspected based on the fragmentary references in Greek sources. We realised that we had underestimated these ancient priests. We had assumed that scientific and mathematical thinking began with the Greeks. But here was evidence of sophisticated scientific observation and mathematical analysis that predated the Greeks by thousands of years. The knowledge of the Anunnaki priests had survived, carried across the millennia in clay tablets, waiting patiently to be rediscovered and read. Breathe deeply. Feel gratitude for the preservation of knowledge, for the long memory of clay, for the dedication of ancient keepers of wisdom. What can we learn from the Anunnaki priests today? What relevance does their story have for us, living in a world they could never have imagined? First, they remind us of the fragility of knowledge. What is not deliberately preserved will be lost. The priests understood this deeply. They devoted enormous resources to copying texts, maintaining archives, teaching new generations. Because of their efforts, their knowledge survived, though only barely and only in fragmentary form. In our digital age, we might assume that knowledge preservation is no longer a problem. Everything is backed up, archived, accessible. But digital formats are far more fragile than clay tablets. Hard drives fail, file formats become obsolete, websites disappear. Digital preservation requires constant active effort and resource investment. Second, the priests remind us of the deep human need to understand our place in the cosmos. They looked up at the night sky and saw not chaos but order, pattern, meaning. They devoted centuries to patiently observing and recording, building up an understanding of celestial mechanics that, while expressed in mythological language, was fundamentally empirical and predictive. This drive to understand, to find pattern and meaning in nature, is at the heart of all scientific endeavour. The Anunnaki priests were, in this sense, early scientists, even if their explanatory framework was theological rather than naturalistic. Third, they exemplify the importance of long-term thinking and commitment. The individual priest might spend his entire career making astronomical observations that would only prove useful when combined with observations made by his predecessors and successors. He was part of a multi-generational project, accepting that he would not live to see the full fruits of his labour. In our culture of short-term thinking and immediate gratification, this long-term perspective is rare and valuable. The great challenges we face, climate change, environmental degradation, the preservation of knowledge and culture, require multi-generational commitment and patience. Let these lessons sink into your consciousness. Let them merge with your dreams as you drift towards sleep. Finally, the Anunnaki priests remind us to honour those who came before us. We are not the first humans to think deeply, to observe carefully, to reason systematically, to create and preserve knowledge. We stand on the shoulders of countless generations of thinkers and knowledge keepers, most of them unknown to us, their individual contributions lost in the mists of time. The priests saw themselves as links in a chain stretching back to the gods themselves. While we might not share their mythological framework, we can appreciate the fundamental insight. We are all part of something larger than ourselves, part of the great human project of understanding and managing our world. When we read their tablets today, carefully deciphering the wedge-shaped impressions made by reed styluses over 4,000 years ago, we are fulfilling their hopes. They preserved knowledge so that it would not be lost. They taught students so that the chain would not be broken. They copied texts so that the wisdom of the past would remain available to the future. We are that future. We are the ones for whom they laboured. Across the vast gulf of time we receive their gift of knowledge, their patient observations, their accumulated wisdom. Your eyes are heavy. Your mind is quiet. The ancient world fades softly into dream. Imagine now that you're in the temple complex at night. The moon hangs full and bright in the sky. The ziggurat rises above you. Its stepped levels like a stairway to the heavens. The air is cool and carries the scent of night-blooming flowers from the sacred gardens. You walk slowly through the complex. All is quiet. The bustle of the day has ceased. Lamps flicker in a few windows where priests keep late vigil, but most of the complex sleeps. You enter the archive room. Even in the dim lamplight you can see the shelves stretching away, laden with tablets. So much knowledge, so many lifetimes of patient work, so many observations, calculations, insights, preserved here for future generations. You pick up a tablet at random. The cuneiform signs march across its surface in neat rows. You cannot read them, but you can feel their weight, their solidity, their presence. This tablet might contain astronomical observations from 1,000 years ago, or medical remedies tested over generations, or mathematical calculations solving problems we would recognize today. You set the tablet down gently, with reverence. You're in the presence of something sacred, not in a religious sense necessarily, but in the deeper sense of something that connects past, present, and future, something that transcends individual lives and speaks to fundamental human aspirations. You leave the archive room and climb the steps of the ziggurat. Level by level you ascend, pausing at each stage to rest and contemplate. The city spreads below you, sleeping peacefully under the watchful gaze of the moon. At the summit you look up at the stars, the same stars the priests observed, the same moon they tracked, the same planets moving in their eternal cycles. The sky has not changed. The patterns the priests discovered are still there, still operating according to the same mathematical principles they so laboriously worked out. You are connected to them across time. You share the same sky, the same world, the same fundamental human nature with its curiosity, its drive to understand, its need for meaning. Feel the cool night breeze, hear the distant sounds of the city below, muted and peaceful. Smell the scent of the rivers, bringing life to the land between them. You are safe. You are peaceful. You are part of the great chain of being, the long continuity of human experience and endeavour. The stars slowly wheel overhead in their ancient dance. The moon sinks gradually toward the western horizon. Time passes, but you are outside time, suspended in the eternal present of this perfect moment. Your breathing is slow and deep. Your body is completely relaxed. Your mind is still and quiet. You lie down on the uppermost platform of the ziggurat, looking up at the stars. The stone is warm from the day's sun, but cooling now in the night air. It supports you perfectly. You feel cradled, held, secure. The stars look back at you. They have looked down on countless humans across countless millennia. They look down on the Anunnaki priests as they made their patient observations. They will look down on humans yet unborn, in futures we cannot imagine, but for now they look down on you. And in their light, you find peace. Let yourself drift now. The story is ending. Your journey through the ancient world has brought you to this place of perfect tranquility. The priests are going about their eternal work. The tablets are being copied and preserved. The observations are being recorded. The knowledge is being maintained and passed on. The great chain is unbroken, and you are part of it. A link in the chain, a moment in the long story. A consciousness briefly illuminated, experiencing wonder and peace under the ancient stars. The boundaries between past and present dissolve. Time becomes fluid, unimportant. There is only this moment, this peace, this perfect rest. The ziggurat beneath you seems to breathe with the slow rhythm of the centuries. The stars pulse with ancient light. The rivers flow eternally between their banks, bringing life, bringing renewal. You are the observer and the observed. You are the priest making observations and the stars being observed. You are the scribe preserving knowledge and the knowledge being preserved. All boundaries dissolve in this timeless moment. Let us return to the temple complex, but in a different era now. We journey back further in time to the very earliest days of Sumerian civilization, to around 3500 BCE, when the first true cities were just beginning to emerge from agricultural villages. The ziggurat has not yet been built. In its place stands a simpler temple, a rectangular building of mud brick raised on a platform above the surrounding settlement. But already the essential elements of the priestly tradition are taking shape. Inside this early temple, a man sits cross-legged on a reed mat. Before him are several clay tokens, small geometric shapes, each representing a quantity of a particular commodity. There are sphere-shaped tokens for grain, egg-shaped tokens for oil, cylindrical tokens for animals. These tokens have been used for centuries by the people of this region to keep track of trade and tribute. But this man, one of the earliest priest administrators, is doing something revolutionary. He is creating a permanent record of these tokens by pressing them into soft clay, making impressions that will remain visible after the clay hardens. Next to each impression, he makes marks with a sharpened reed, indicating quantities and perhaps the names of the people involved in the transaction. He does not know it, but he is inventing writing. Or rather, he is participating in the gradual process by which writing emerges from simpler record-keeping systems. Over the coming centuries, these simple impressions and marks will evolve into the sophisticated cuneiform script that will carry the accumulated knowledge of Mesopotamian civilization. This earliest priest is not trying to record literature or preserve ancient wisdom. He's simply trying to keep accurate accounts of the temple's economic activities. But in solving this practical problem, he and others like him are creating the technology that will make all future knowledge preservation possible. Feel the significance of this moment. Writing, the ability to record information outside the human brain, to preserve it across time and space, is one of the most important inventions in human history, and it emerged here in the temples of ancient Sumer, created by the earliest Anunnaki priests. Rest in this knowledge. Let it fill you with wonder and peace. Over the following centuries, the writing system becomes more sophisticated. The simple pictographic signs, a picture of a head meaning head, a picture of a bowl meaning bowl, gradually become more abstract. The pictures are rotated 90 degrees and simplified into combinations of wedge-shaped marks, the characteristic cuneiform style. More importantly, the system expands beyond simple record-keeping. Priests begin to use it to record religious texts, literary compositions, and practical knowledge. The first written laws appear. The first written myths are inscribed. The first mathematical texts are produced. By around 2600 BCE, Sumerian literature is flourishing. Priests compose hymns to the gods in elaborate poetic language. They write down the great myths, the creation of the world, the flood story, the descent of Inanna to the underworld. They record proverbs and wisdom sayings. They create the first libraries, collections of tablets organized by subject matter. One of these early literary priests sits in a quiet corner of the temple working on a composition. He is creating a hymn to Nisaba, the goddess of writing and grain, the divine patron of scribes. His stylus moves across the wet clay tablet with practiced precision, each sign crisp and clear. The hymn praises Nisaba's gifts to humanity, the art of writing, which allows knowledge to be preserved, the cultivation of grain, which allows civilization to flourish. These two gifts are linked in the priest's mind. Agriculture and literacy are the twin foundations of civilized life, both requiring patient, systematic effort, both allowing humans to transcend the immediate present and plan for the future. As the priest works, he is conscious of the sacred nature of his task. He is not merely composing poetry, he is creating something that will outlast him, that will be read and appreciated by future generations, that will carry the praise of Nisaba forward through time. When he finishes, he sets the tablet aside to dry. Eventually it will be baked in a kiln, hardening it permanently. It will be placed in the temple library, where other priests will read it, copy it, perhaps memorize it for recitation during rituals, and thousands of years later, archaeologists will excavate it from the ruins of the temple. Modern scholars will decipher its text. We will read his words and know his thoughts. His hope for immortality through writing will be fulfilled beyond anything he could have imagined. Let this comfort you. Let it give you peace. The words we speak, the thoughts we think, the works we create, they ripple forward through time in ways we cannot predict or control. Drift now. Drift in the gentle currents of history. Let us visit another scene from this early period. We are in the city of Uruk, around 2800 BCE. Uruk is the largest city in the world at this time, home to perhaps 50,000 people. Its walls, according to legend, were built by the hero king Gilgamesh. Its great temple precinct, the Eanna, is dedicated to Inanna, the goddess of love and war. In a courtyard of the Eanna complex, young students sit in rows, their clay tablets before them, copying a standard text under the supervision of their teacher. The text is a list of names. Names of gods, names of cities, names of birds, names of professions. This is how education begins, with memorization, with the mastery of lists, with the accumulation of vocabulary. The students are learning not just how to write, but how to think in the ordered, categorical way that literacy encourages. By organizing knowledge into lists, by grouping related items together, by creating hierarchies and classifications, they are learning to impose structure on the chaos of experience. One student, a boy of about 10 years old, struggles with a particularly difficult sign. His hand-eye coordination is not yet fully developed, and the sign comes out lopsided, unclear. The teacher, a junior priest, pauses by his side and gently corrects him, guiding his hand through the proper strokes. The teacher is patient but firm. The script must be mastered. There is no shortcut, no easier way. Only through repeated practice day after day, month after month, year after year, will the boy achieve the fluency necessary to become a true scribe. But the teacher also knows that not all of these students will succeed. Many will drop out, returning to their families to learn farming or craft trades. Only a few will persevere through the long, difficult training, and of these few, only the very best will eventually be chosen for advanced training in the priestly arts. This is how the system perpetuates itself. Each generation, a small number of talented individuals are selected, trained intensively, and initiated into the mysteries of the priesthood. They join the ranks of the knowledge keepers, taking their place in the great chain. Feel yourself supported by this chain. Feel the presence of all who have ever sought knowledge, ever persevered through difficulty, ever committed themselves to learning and understanding. Rest in that support. Let it hold you in perfect peace. The school day ends as the sun reaches its zenith and the heat becomes oppressive. The students clean their tablets, ready to be reused tomorrow, and disperse to their homes for the midday meal. The teacher remains behind, reviewing the day's work, making notes about which students show promise and which are struggling. He thinks about his own student days, now 20 years in the past. He remembers the difficulty, the frustration, the times he wanted to quit. But he also remembers the moment when something clicked, when the signs that had seemed so arbitrary and meaningless suddenly resolved into language, into meaning, into a window onto the thoughts of others. That moment of breakthrough when literacy is truly achieved is almost magical. Suddenly, the tablets in the library are no longer mere objects but gateways to other minds, other times, other worlds. The accumulated knowledge of centuries becomes accessible. The words of the gods themselves can be read and understood. The teacher knows that some of his students will never experience this breakthrough. For them, writing will always be a struggle, a mechanical skill never fully mastered. But for a few, the breakthrough will come, and when it does, their lives will be transformed. They will join the elite community of the literate, the knowledge keepers, the priests. Let us move forward in time again to the Akkadian period, around 2300 BCE. Sargon of Akkad has created the first true empire, conquering the independent Sumerian city-states and uniting them under his rule. A new language, Akkadian, becomes the language of administration and power, though Sumerian remains the language of learning and religion. The priests must adapt to this new reality. They must learn Akkadian while maintaining their knowledge of Sumerian. They must serve a centralized imperial government while preserving their traditional roles and prerogatives. In the Temple of Nippur, the religious center of Sumer, a senior priest works on a bilingual text. On the left side of the tablet he writes a traditional Sumerian hymn. On the right side he provides an Akkadian translation. This is practical. It allows Akkadian speakers to understand the Sumerian religious texts. But it also serves a deeper purpose. It preserves the Sumerian language itself, maintaining it as a living language of scholarship even as it dies out as a spoken tongue. Over the coming centuries, Sumerian will become to the Mesopotamian world what Latin would later become to medieval Europe. A sacred language, a scholarly language, a language of the educated elite that transcends ethnic and political boundaries. The priest working on this bilingual text understands the importance of what he is doing. Languages carry culture. When a language dies, a whole way of thinking, a whole worldview can be lost. By preserving Sumerian, he is preserving the wisdom of the ancestors, maintaining the connection to the ancient past when the gods walked the earth. Breathe deeply, feel the weight of linguistic heritage, the power of words to carry meaning across generations and cultures. This preservation of dead languages for scholarly and religious purposes is a remarkable phenomenon. It requires enormous effort. The priests must teach students languages that have no practical use in daily life. They must maintain and copy texts that fewer and fewer people can read. They must justify this effort to rulers and patrons who might question its value. But the priests understand something profound. Knowledge builds on knowledge. The insights of the past inform the understanding of the present. To cut oneself off from the past, to allow its wisdom to be forgotten, is to impoverish the present and endanger the future. Modern civilization has made the same choice the Anunnaki priests made. We preserve ancient languages. We maintain libraries of texts that few people read. We support scholars who study the past in minute detail. We do this not because it is immediately practical, but because we understand that we are part of a long continuity, that we owe debts to the past and have obligations to the future. Rest in this understanding. Let it give you a sense of connection and purpose. The centuries pass. Dynasties rise and fall. The Akkadian Empire collapses. The Sumerian city-states reassert their independence during the Earth III period, around 2100 BCE. Then new invaders arrive, the Amorites, establishing kingdoms at Babylon, Mari, and other centres. Through all these political upheavals, the priests endure. Temples are sometimes destroyed in warfare, but they are rebuilt. Libraries are burned, but the texts are recopied from surviving duplicates. The chain of knowledge transmission is stressed but never broken. Indeed, the priests benefit from political competition. Different kings patron different temples, each trying to outdo the others in piety and generosity. The priests become skilled at navigating political complexities, maintaining good relations with whoever holds power while preserving their own independence and prerogatives. A priest in the city of around 2000 BCE, receives a visit from a royal official. The king is planning a military campaign and wishes to know if the omens are favourable. The priest nods gravely and promises to consult the gods. He knows what he must do. He will sacrifice a sheep and examine its liver, looking for the telltale signs that indicate divine favour or disfavour. He will observe the sky for unusual celestial phenomena. He will perform divination rituals, interpreting signs according to the traditional methods preserved in the temple archives. But the priest also knows that this is not mere superstition. The interpretation of omens is a sophisticated art, based on centuries of observation and correlation. Certain signs do consistently precede certain outcomes. Whether this is because the gods send signs, or because the priests have learned to read subtle indicators that others miss, hardly matters. The system works, or at least it works often enough to maintain its credibility. Moreover, the priest understands the psychological and political value of the omen system. It forces leaders to pause before major decisions, to consider whether the time is right, to prepare thoroughly. A negative omen provides a face-saving way to cancel or postpone ill-advised ventures. A positive omen boosts morale and confidence. The priest is not a cynical manipulator. He genuinely believes in the reality of divine communication through signs. But he is also a pragmatist, understanding the human and political dimensions of his role. Let this complexity fill your mind. Nothing is simple. The ancient priests were not naive believers, nor were they cynical frauds. They were sophisticated thinkers operating within their own cultural framework, trying to understand and manage a complex world. Drift in this complexity. Let it wash away simplistic judgments and easy categories. The priest performs the sacrifice. The sheep is killed with a quick, practiced motion, minimizing suffering. The liver is removed and examined carefully. The priest has been trained in hepatoscopy, the art of liver divination, from his youth. He knows every bump, every lobe, every variation of colour and texture that might carry meaning. He compares what he sees to the extensive omen compendia maintained in the temple archives. These texts list thousands of liver configurations and their associated meanings, accumulated over centuries of practice. A lobe pointing in a particular direction means success in battle. A certain type of discoloration indicates danger from treachery. Unusual growth suggests divine disfavour. The priest finds what he is looking for. The signs are generally positive, though there are some ambiguous elements that suggest caution. He formulates his report carefully, emphasizing the positive signs while noting the need for careful preparation and prudent planning. The royal official receives this report with satisfaction. He will convey it to the king, who will be pleased. The campaign will proceed, with the assurance of divine approval. If the campaign succeeds, the priest's reputation for accurate divination will be enhanced. If it fails, well, the priest did mention those cautionary signs. Perhaps the king did not prepare carefully enough, or perhaps his enemies had even stronger divine support. This is the delicate dance the priests perform, maintaining their influence and credibility while navigating the unpredictable realities of politics and warfare. It requires intelligence, psychological insight, and a deep understanding of human nature. But beneath the political manoeuvring, there is genuine belief. The priest truly thinks he is reading the will of the gods. He truly believes that the universe speaks to those who know how to listen. He's not merely pretending for political advantage. This combination of genuine belief and sophisticated pragmatism characterizes the Anunnaki priests throughout their history. They are true believers and savvy operators, sincere seekers of divine truth and skilled navigators of human politics. Feel the tension and balance of these dual roles. Let it teach you about the complexity of human motivation and belief. Rest now. Let the ancient world surround and support you. Let us turn our attention to another aspect of priestly knowledge: medicine and healing. The Anunnaki priests were the physicians of their civilizations, combining empirical medical knowledge with spiritual healing practices. We visit a temple in the city of Lhasa around 1800 BCE. In a small chamber off the main courtyard, a priest-physician tends to a patient. The man has come to the temple complaining of persistent headaches and disturbed vision. The priest listens carefully to the description of symptoms, asking detailed questions. When did the headaches begin? Are they constant or intermittent? What makes them better or worse? Are there any other symptoms? This careful taking of medical history is the first step in diagnosis. The priest-physicians understood that different ailments present different symptom patterns. By carefully observing and categorizing these patterns, they could identify diseases and prescribe appropriate treatments. The priest examines the patient, looking at his eyes, feeling his pulse, checking for fever. He considers several possible diagnoses. The symptoms could indicate a natural ailment, perhaps a problem with the eyes themselves, or a digestive disorder causing referred pain. Or they could indicate spiritual causation, possession by a demon, or the anger of a god. The priest decides to pursue both natural and spiritual treatment. He prescribes an herbal remedy that his experience suggests may help with headaches. The prescription is specific: certain herbs, prepared in a certain way, taken at certain times. The temple maintains extensive records of which remedies work for which ailments, a pharmaceutical knowledge base built up over centuries. But he also performs a ritual purification, believing that spiritual cleansing may be necessary to fully heal the patient. He recites incantations designed to drive away any demons that might be causing the affliction. He burns aromatic woods and herbs, creating a cleansing smoke. He sprinkles the patient with holy water from the temple well. Modern medicine would regard the ritual elements as ineffective superstition, and yet we should not dismiss them entirely. The psychological effect of elaborate healing rituals can be significant. The patient's belief in the treatment, his sense that powerful forces are being mobilized on his behalf, his participation in meaningful ritual, all of this can have real physiological effects, engaging the body's natural healing processes. The priest-physicians understood this intuitively. They knew that belief mattered, that hope mattered, that the mind and spirit influenced the body's health. This holistic understanding of health and illness was, in some ways, more sophisticated than the purely mechanistic approach that would later dominate Western medicine. Breathe slowly. Feel the interconnection of mind, body, and spirit. Let healing energy flow through you. The patient leaves the temple with his herbal remedy and instructions for its use. He also carries away a renewed sense of hope, a belief that powerful forces are working on his behalf. In a week or two, his headaches diminish. Is this due to the herbs, to the spiritual cleansing, to the placebo effect, or simply to the natural resolution of whatever was causing the problem? The patient does not ask these questions. He knows only that he sought help from the priests and now feels better. His faith in the priest's healing power is confirmed. The priest-physician returns to his study after the patient departs. He takes out a medical tablet and adds a brief note about this case, the symptoms, the diagnosis, the treatment prescribed, and, eventually, when he hears back from the patient, the outcome. This is how medical knowledge accumulates, case by case, observation by observation, building up a database of what works and what doesn't. The medical tablets of ancient Mesopotamia are remarkable documents. They list hundreds of ailments, from eye diseases to digestive disorders to skin conditions to mental illnesses. For each ailment, they provide detailed symptom descriptions and multiple treatment options. The treatments themselves range from the empirically sound to the magical. Willow bark, which contains salicylic acid, the active ingredient in aspirin, is recommended for pain and fever, a genuinely effective remedy. Certain minerals and plant extracts are prescribed for specific conditions, some of which modern pharmacology has confirmed possess relevant medicinal properties. But there are also treatments that seem purely magical. reciting specific incantations, wearing amulets, performing elaborate rituals. Yet even here, we should be cautious about dismissing these practices entirely. The psychological and psychosomatic effects of such treatments can be real, even if they don't work through the mechanisms the ancient priests believed. The priest-physician who maintains these medical records sees himself as continuing a tradition of healing that stretches back to the god Ninurta, who was believed to have taught the first healing arts to humanity. He is not inventing new treatments, but preserving and applying ancient knowledge passed down through generations of priest healers. Yet he is also observant and empirical. When a treatment consistently fails to help, he notes this. When a new remedy proves effective, he adds it to his repertoire. The tradition is not static, but slowly evolving, incorporating new observations while maintaining continuity with the past. Rest in this balance of tradition and innovation, of received wisdom and empirical observation. Let us journey forward in time once more to the Old Babylonian period, around 1750 BCE. This is the era of Hammurabi, the great lawgiver, whose famous code is inscribed on a stone stele and displayed publicly in Babylon. The code itself reflects the influence of priestly scholarship. Hammurabi did not invent his laws from whole cloth. Rather, he drew on centuries of legal tradition, codifying and systematizing existing practices. Priests served as legal scholars and judges, interpreting laws and deciding cases. In a temple complex in Babylon, a priestly judge hears a case. A merchant claims that his neighbour has damaged his wall, allowing water to flood his property. The neighbour disputes this, claiming the wall was already weak and collapsed on its own. Both parties bring witnesses. The testimony contradicts. The priest-judge listens carefully to both sides. He applies the relevant sections of the law code, but he also uses his own judgment, his understanding of human nature, his assessment of the witness's credibility. The law provides a framework, but the judge must interpret and apply it to the specific circumstances. After deliberation, the judge renders his decision. The neighbour must pay for the damage, but at a reduced rate, recognizing that the wall's weakness contributed to the collapse. It is a compromise solution, reflecting the judge's attempt to balance justice with mercy to address both parties' legitimate concerns. The decision is recorded on a clay tablet, which will be stored in the temple archives. Like the astronomical observations and medical cases, legal decisions accumulate over time, creating a body of precedent and interpretation. Future judges will consult these archived decisions when facing similar cases, maintaining consistency and building up legal sophistication. Feel the weight of justice, the importance of fair judgment, the value of accumulated legal wisdom. The priest judge, after concluding the case, reflects on his role. He is not merely applying mechanical rules, he is seeking to discern what is right, what is just, what serves the well-being of the community and honours the gods. Law and morality are not separate in his worldview. Law is the god's gift to humanity, the framework that allows people to live together in peace and prosperity. This understanding of law as divine gift is reflected in the prologue to Hammurabi's code, which describes the laws as given by Shamash, the sun god and god of justice. Hammurabi presents himself not as the inventor of the laws, but as the faithful servant of the gods, implementing their will in human affairs. The priests, as interpreters and guardians of the law, thus have a sacred responsibility. They must be fair, incorruptible, wise. They must resist pressure from the powerful while protecting the vulnerable. They must balance mercy with justice, flexibility with consistency. This is a heavy burden, and not all priests live up to it. Some are corrupt, accepting bribes, favouring the wealthy and powerful. Some are lazy, making quick judgments without proper investigation. Some are harsh, applying the letter of the law without compassion. But the ideal remains. The priest judge as the embodiment of divine justice, the upholder of cosmic order, the protector of the weak, the wise arbitrator of human disputes. Let this ideal inspire you. Let it remind you that justice is a sacred human aspiration, that the rule of law is a precious achievement, that fair judgment is a skill requiring wisdom, compassion, and dedication. Drift now in these thoughts. Let them settle into your consciousness like truth, settling into its proper place. The sun sets over Babylon. The walls of the great city glow golden in the last light. The ziggurat of Marduk rises above all, its summit touched by the final rays of sun. Priests move about their evening duties, preparing the temples for the night rituals, lighting lamps, arranging offerings. In one temple, a group of senior priests gathers for a discussion. They are considering a theological problem that has troubled them. If the gods are all powerful and benevolent, why do innocent people suffer? Why do the righteous sometimes meet with disaster while the wicked prosper? This is not an idle philosophical question. It strikes at the heart of the worldview that sustains the entire priestly enterprise. If the gods do not ensure that the good are rewarded and the evil punished, what guarantee is there that piety and morality matter? What foundation is there for the moral order? One priest argues that suffering is always deserved, even if the reasons are not apparent to humans. Perhaps the sufferer committed some sin unknowingly. Perhaps an ancestor's offence is being punished across generations. Perhaps the punishment serves some divine purpose beyond human understanding. Another priest suggests that the gods sometimes test the faithful, allowing them to suffer to prove their devotion. Like gold refined in fire, the righteous emerge from suffering purified and strengthened. A third priest proposes that not all suffering comes from the gods. Some is caused by demons, malevolent spirits who act independently of divine will. Some is simply the result of living in an imperfect world where accidents and natural disasters occur. The discussion continues long into the night. No consensus is reached. The problem of unjust suffering remains, as it always has, a challenge to simple piety and straightforward moral causation. But the very fact that the priests engage seriously with this question is significant. They are not content with easy answers. They grapple with the contradictions and complexities of existence. They try to make sense of a world that often seems senseless. This theological sophistication, this willingness to question and probe, characterizes the best of the priestly tradition. The Anunnaki priests were not merely preservers of dogma, but active thinkers, wrestling with fundamental questions about the nature of reality, the problem of evil, the meaning of human existence. Let this intellectual seriousness inspire you. Let it remind you that the deepest questions have been asked by humans for thousands of years, that we are not the first to wonder and doubt and seek understanding. Rest in the company of all who have ever asked difficult questions and refused easy answers. The theological discussion concludes without resolution, as such discussions often do. The priests part, each returning to his own chambers to sleep and dream. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new duties, new opportunities to serve the gods and preserve knowledge. Let us visit one more scene from ancient Babylon before we move forward in time. It is early morning, just before dawn. A young priestess, for women too could hold certain priestly roles in Mesopotamian religion, makes her way to the roof of the temple to observe the morning star, the planet Venus. Venus holds special significance in Mesopotamian astronomy and religion. As both the morning star and the evening star, Venus seems to die and be reborn, disappearing from the sky only to reappear weeks later. This cycle of death and rebirth connects Venus to the goddess Inanna, called Ishtar in Akkadian, the most complex and important goddess of the Mesopotamian pantheon. The priestess is dedicated to Inanna's service. Part of her duties involves tracking Venus's movements, recording its positions, its periods of visibility and invisibility. This knowledge has practical applications, helping to maintain the calendar, but it also has religious significance. By understanding Venus's cycles, the priestess believes she is understanding something of Inanna's own mysteries. As dawn approaches, the priestess scans the eastern horizon. There, just above the horizon, bright and clear, Venus blazes in the pre-dawn sky. The priestess notes its position relative to the background stars, measures its height above the horizon, records all of this on a prepared tablet. She is filled with awe and reverence. That bright point of light is the goddess herself, made visible to human eyes. To observe it, to track it, to understand its patterns, this is to participate in the divine order, to touch the eternal. The sun rises, and Venus fades from view, overwhelmed by solar brilliance. The priestess completes her observations and descends from the roof. She will add her data to the centuries of Venus observations maintained in the temple archives. Future astronomers will use her work, building on it, refining the models of Venus's behaviour. She does not know that, millennia later, modern astronomers will look back at these ancient Babylonian Venus records with amazement and respect. The precision of the observations, the centuries-long dedication to systematic record-keeping, the development of mathematical models to predict the planet's behaviour, all of this represents a remarkable scientific achievement. The priestess simply knows that she is doing the work the goddess has called her to do. She is serving Inanna, serving her temple, serving the community that depends on accurate timekeeping and calendar maintenance. She is fulfilling her role in the great chain of knowledge keepers. Breathe deeply. Feel the dedication of this priestess. Feel her sense of purpose and connection to something greater than herself. Let her devotion inspire you. Let it remind you that work performed with love and dedication becomes sacred, regardless of how humble or technical it might seem. The centuries continue to turn. The Old Babylonian period gives way to the Kassite period, then to the Assyrian domination, then to the Neo-Babylonian revival under Nebuchadnezzar II. Through all these political changes, the priests endure and adapt. By the Neo-Babylonian period, around 600 BCE, the priestly tradition has reached extraordinary levels of sophistication. The astronomical observations have been refined to the point where priests can predict eclipses years in advance. Mathematical techniques have been developed for calculating planetary positions with impressive accuracy. Medical knowledge has expanded to include detailed anatomical understanding and sophisticated surgical techniques. Let us visit the great library of Ashurbanipal in Nineveh, assembled by the Assyrian king in the 7th century BCE. This library contains thousands of tablets gathered from temples and cities across Mesopotamia. It is the most comprehensive collection of knowledge in the ancient world. A priest scholar works in the library, researching a particular mythological question. He pulls tablets from different cities, different eras, comparing versions of the same myth. He notes variations, traces how the story has evolved, tries to understand its deeper meanings. This comparative scholarly approach to mythology is remarkably modern. The priest understands that myths are not simple literal truth, but complex symbolic narratives that can be interpreted on multiple levels. He recognizes that different communities tell stories differently, that narratives evolve over time, that texts must be understood in their historical and cultural contexts. He is not merely preserving myths, but studying them, analyzing them, thinking critically about them. He is a scholar in the truest sense, not content to simply repeat what he's been taught, but actively investigating, questioning, seeking deeper understanding. This scholarly approach extends to all areas of priestly knowledge. Astronomical texts don't merely list observations, but analyze patterns, propose explanatory models, test predictions against new data. Medical texts don't merely prescribe treatments, but discuss different approaches, note successes and failures, refine techniques based on experience. The Anunnaki priests at their best were not dogmatic traditionalists, but sophisticated scholars engaged in an ongoing project of understanding the world and humanity's place in it. Rest in this understanding. Let it give you a new appreciation for the intellectual achievements of the ancient world. But even as the priests reach the height of their intellectual achievements, forces are gathering that will eventually destroy their world. The Persian conquest in 539 BCE brings Mesopotamia into a vast empire with different administrative systems and religious traditions. Greek philosophy and science begin to circulate, offering alternative ways of understanding the world. The priests adapt, as they have always adapted. They learn to work with the new rulers. They translate their knowledge into new languages. They engage with Greek ideas, finding sometimes surprising points of contact. But something fundamental is changing. The old certainties are eroding. The gods of Mesopotamia are no longer the only gods, no longer obviously supreme. Other peoples have their own gods, their own wisdom traditions, their own ways of understanding the cosmos. A priest in late Babylonian period, around 200 BCE, works on an astronomical text of extraordinary complexity. He's calculating the position of Jupiter for 50 years into the future, using sophisticated mathematical techniques that incorporate centuries of observational data. The mathematics is impressive. Systems of equations, numerical tables, geometric models. This is work that rivals anything produced in the ancient world. Yet the priest is also aware that the old religious framework within which this work has always been situated is crumbling. Fewer people believe in Marduk and Ishtar. Fewer families send their children to the temple schools. Fewer resources flow to support the temples and their scholarly activities. The tradition that has endured for millennia is dying. The priest feels this keenly. He is working on this astronomical text not just for practical use, but as an act of preservation. He wants to record the highest achievements of Babylonian astronomy before the knowledge is lost. He's writing for a future he will never see, hoping that someone someday will appreciate and understand what he and his predecessors accomplished. Feel the poignancy of this moment. Feel the priest's determination to preserve knowledge even as his world crumbles around him. Let his dedication in the face of loss inspire you. Let it remind you that the preservation of knowledge is always worthwhile, even when the outcome is uncertain. The last cuneiform texts are written. The temples fall silent. The ziggurats crumble. The clay tablets are buried beneath the rubble and the blowing sands. For nearly 2 millennia, the knowledge of the Anunnaki priests is lost to humanity, but it is not destroyed. Clay endures. And in the 19th century, when European archaeologists begin excavating the tells of Mesopotamia, the tablets emerge from the earth like seeds long buried, waiting for the right conditions to sprout. The decipherment of cuneiform is painstaking work, taking decades of effort by multiple scholars. But gradually the ancient languages yield their secrets. The tablets begin to speak again. Modern scholars read the astronomical text with astonishment. The sophistication of Babylonian mathematical astronomy had not been suspected. The Greeks were thought to have invented mathematical science, but here was evidence of equally sophisticated work that predated the Greeks by centuries. The medical texts revealed detailed anatomical knowledge and effective treatments. The mathematical texts showed advanced techniques. The literary texts displayed sophisticated poetry and profound philosophical reflection. The legal texts demonstrated complex systems of justice and administration. In every field, the Anunnaki priests proved to be far more sophisticated, far more intellectually accomplished than anyone had imagined. The decipherment of their texts forced a fundamental reassessment of ancient history and the origins of human knowledge. Today, cuneiform tablets are displayed in museums around the world. Scholars continue to study and publish them. The knowledge of the Anunnaki priests has returned to human consciousness after its long sleep beneath the desert sands. The chain was broken for a time, but it has been reconnected. We are once again the heirs of Mesopotamian wisdom, the recipients of the priest's gift across the millennia. Breathe deeply. Feel the connection across time. Feel gratitude for the preservation, the rediscovery, the reconnection. What does this mean for us today? What can we learn from the Anunnaki priests that remains relevant in our vastly different world? First, we learn the paramount importance of preserving knowledge. The priests devoted enormous resources to copying texts, maintaining archives, teaching new generations. Because of their efforts, we can know their world. Because they wrote things down and preserved their writings, 4,000 years of history are not entirely lost. In our digital age, we face new challenges of preservation. Digital formats change rapidly. Storage media degrade. Much of what we create today may be inaccessible to future generations. We need our own commitment to preservation, our own dedication to maintaining the chain of knowledge transmission. Second, we learn the value of long-term thinking. The priest participated in projects that spanned multiple lifetimes. An astronomer might spend his entire career making observations that would only prove useful when combined with observations made by his predecessors and successors. He accepted that he was part of something larger than himself. Our society struggles with short-term thinking. We want immediate results, quick returns, instant gratification. But the great challenges we face, climate change, environmental degradation, social justice, the preservation of knowledge and culture, require multi-generational commitment. We need to recover the priest's patient, long-term perspective. Third, we learn the importance of systematic observation and record-keeping. The priests didn't just observe the sky occasionally, they observed it continuously for centuries. They didn't just try medical treatments randomly, they kept careful records of what worked and what didn't. This systematic approach was the foundation of their impressive achievements. Modern science continues this tradition of systematic observation and experimentation. But we can apply these principles more broadly in our own lives, observing ourselves and our environments carefully, keeping track of what works and what doesn't, learning from experience in a systematic way. Let these lessons sink deeply into your mind as you rest. Let them shape your understanding and your future actions. Fourth, we learn the value of interdisciplinary knowledge. The priest didn't specialize narrowly. A single priest might be an astronomer, a mathematician, a physician, a judge, a ritual specialist, and a literary scholar. This breadth of knowledge allowed them to see connections between different fields, to apply insights from one domain to problems in another. Our society has become increasingly specialized. Experts know more and more about less and less. This has advantages, deep expertise in narrow fields, but also costs. We lose the ability to see the big picture, to make connections across domains, to apply knowledge creatively. We might benefit from recovering something of the priest's generalist approach, cultivating breadth alongside depth, maintaining curiosity across multiple fields, seeking the connections that specialization obscures. Fifth, we learn the importance of ritual and meaning in human life. The priest understood that humans need more than material prosperity. We need meaning, purpose, connection to something greater than ourselves. Their elaborate rituals provided this, creating sacred time and space, connecting individuals to community and cosmos. Our increasingly secular society has lost much of this. We are materially wealthy but often spiritually impoverished, lacking the rituals and narratives that give life depth and meaning. We might not want to return to the priest's particular beliefs, but we could learn from their understanding that ritual and meaning matter, that humans need more than bread alone. Sixth, we learn the value of education and the transmission of knowledge across generations. The priests invested heavily in education, training each new generation in the arts and sciences, ensuring that knowledge was not lost. They understood that civilization depends on education, that without it, we slip back into ignorance and barbarism. Our society claims to value education, but our commitment is often shallow. We underfund schools, underpay teachers, treat education as a commodity rather than a sacred trust. We could learn from the priest's deep commitment to education as the foundation of civilized life. Rest now. Let these lessons settle into your deepest mind. Let them become part of your understanding, your worldview, your approach to life. Imagine yourself once more on the top of the ziggurat, under the stars. But this time, you are not alone. Around you stand the priests of all the ages, the earliest priest administrators inventing writing, the astronomers tracking the movements of the planets, the physicians healing the sick, the judges rendering fair verdicts, the teachers training new generations, the scribes copying ancient texts. They are all there, all together, a great assembly spanning thousands of years, and they welcome you. You are part of their chain, their tradition, their great project of preserving and expanding human knowledge. You carry forward what they began. You are part of the same human endeavour, the quest to understand, to preserve, to transmit, to build across generations a cumulative body of knowledge and wisdom. The stars wheel overhead in their eternal dance, the same stars they observed, the same patterns they decoded, the same cosmos they tried to understand, and you are doing the same work in your own way, in your own time. You observe, you learn, you preserve, you pass on. You are a link in the chain, as they were links in the chain. Feel the presence of all these priests around you. Feel their support, their encouragement, their blessing. They work so that you might know. They preserved so that you might learn. They taught so that the chain might continue, and now you carry it forward. Not as a priest in a temple, perhaps, but in whatever way your life allows. Every time you learn something new, you honour them. Every time you teach someone something valuable, you continue their work. Every time you preserve knowledge or create it, you are part of their tradition. The boundaries of time dissolve. Past, present, and future merge into one eternal moment of knowing and teaching and preserving. You are the past reaching into the present. You are the present reaching into the future. You are the eternal chain of human knowledge and wisdom. Breathe deeply. Feel this connection. Let it fill you with purpose and peace. The assembly of priests begins to fade now, dissolving like morning mist. But they don't disappear entirely. They remain present invisibly as they always have been. Every time you open a book, they are there. Every time you learn something new, they are there. Every time you think deeply about anything, they are there. You are never alone in your quest for knowledge and understanding. You are always supported by the invisible presence of all who have come before, all who sought and learned and preserved and passed on. and you are always accompanied by the invisible presence of all who will come after, all who will build on what you leave behind, all who will benefit from your efforts to preserve and expand knowledge. This is the great human project, the work that defines us as a species, the cumulative building of knowledge and culture across generations. We are not merely biological organisms, we are knowledge-creating, knowledge-preserving, knowledge-transmitting beings. This is what makes us human. The Anunnaki priests understood this. They devoted their lives to it. They sacrificed comfort, wealth, power, things they could have pursued, in favour of the patient, difficult work of preserving and expanding knowledge, not for themselves, for the future, for you, for all who would come after them. And their sacrifice was not in vain. We have received their gift. We have decoded their writings. We have learned from their observations. We have been enriched by their wisdom. Now it is our turn. What will we preserve? What will we pass on? What will we leave for those who come after us? Rest in these questions. Don't try to answer them now. Let them sink into your unconscious mind, where they will continue to work, shaping your understanding and your actions in ways you may not even notice. The night deepens. The stars slowly wheel across the sky. The ziggurat stands silent and eternal, a monument to human aspiration, to the desire to reach from earth toward heaven, from ignorance toward understanding, from forgetting toward remembering. You lie on the uppermost platform perfectly at peace. The stone beneath you is cool and smooth. The air is fresh and clean. Above you the stars shine with a brilliance impossible to see in our light-polluted modern world. You can see the Milky Way, that great river of stars stretching across the sky. The Mesopotamians called it the writing of the sky, seeing in it divine script, messages from the gods written in light. You watch a meteor streak across the sky, a brief flash of light against the darkness. The ancient priests would have noted this, recorded it, added it to their database of celestial phenomena. They would have considered what it might mean, what message the gods might be sending. You don't interpret it as an omen, but you appreciate it nonetheless. The universe is vast and filled with wonders. We are small, brief, insignificant in cosmic terms, and yet we can observe, we can understand, we can appreciate, we can create meaning even in a universe that might have no inherent meaning. This is the priest's ultimate gift, not any specific piece of knowledge, but the commitment to knowledge itself, the belief that observation and understanding matter, that the quest for knowledge is worthwhile, that preserving and transmitting what we learn is a sacred duty. Let this commitment fill you. Let it become part of who you are. You are drifting now, hovering in that space between waking and sleeping, between consciousness and dream. The boundary is permeable, fluid. Thoughts become images. Images become thoughts. The ancient world and the modern world blur together. You dream, but you are aware that you are dreaming. You see the temple complex spread below you, but now it is not ancient but eternal, existing in all times simultaneously. You see priests of all eras moving about their duties, and among them you see modern scholars, students, teachers, scientists, all part of the same great enterprise. The ziggurat begins to transform. It becomes a library, its levels now shelves filled with books, tablets, scrolls, digital archives. It becomes a university, its chambers now classrooms and laboratories. It becomes a museum, its halls now filled with artifacts and exhibits. All of these are the same thing, you realise. All are temples of knowledge, sacred spaces dedicated to the preservation and transmission of human understanding. The form changes, but the function remains constant. The priests of old and the scholars of today are doing the same work, serving the same purpose. You see the chain of transmission stretching back into the unimaginable past and forward into the unknowable future. You see your own place in that chain, your own small but essential role. You are a link connecting what came before to what will come after. And you understand, with a clarity that will fade when you wake but leave a residue of truth behind, that this is enough. To be a link in the chain is enough. You don't have to be the greatest link, the strongest link, the most important link. You just have to be a link, maintaining the connection, preserving the continuity. This is the wisdom of the Anunnaki priests, that we are all part of something larger than ourselves, that our individual contributions matter even if they seem small, that the chain must be maintained, that the knowledge must be preserved and passed on. Rest in this wisdom. Let it become part of your foundation, your bedrock, your core understanding of who you are and what you're here to do. The dream fades. The ziggurat returns to its ancient form. The stars continue their slow wheeling across the night sky. You lie still and at peace, breathing slowly, deeply relaxed. All is quiet. All is peaceful. All is well. The priests have shared their wisdom with you. You have walked in their world, learned from their example, received their blessing. You are part of their tradition now, linked to them across the millennia, joined in the great work of preserving and expanding human knowledge. This connection will remain with you when you wake. You may not remember all the details of this journey, but something will have changed. You will carry with you a deeper appreciation for education, for knowledge, for the long continuity of human culture and wisdom. You will understand, perhaps without being able to fully articulate it, that you are part of something ancient and noble and important. You are a keeper of knowledge in whatever small way your life allows. You are a teacher, whether formally or informally. You are a preserver, maintaining and passing on what you have learned. This is your heritage from the Anunnaki priests. This is their gift to you across 4,000 years. Receive it with gratitude. Honor it with your life. The stars are fading now as dawn approaches. The eastern sky begins to pale. Soon the sun will rise and the stars will vanish in its brilliance. But they are still there, always there, whether we can see them or not. Like the knowledge of the priests. It was there even when no one could read it, buried beneath the sands, waiting. It is always there, whether we access it or not, whether we remember it or not. Your breathing is very slow now, very peaceful. You're deeply, deeply relaxed, on the verge of sleep, or perhaps already sleeping, dreaming without realizing you're dreaming. The ziggurat begins to fade. The ancient world recedes. You're returning to your own time, your own place, your own life. But you carry something of the ancient world with you, something precious and important. You carry the knowledge that you are part of a great chain stretching back to the beginning of human civilization and forward to its unknowable end. You're not alone. You're connected, supported, guided by all who came before and all who will come after. Let this knowledge give you strength. Let it give you purpose. Let it give you peace. You're back in your own time now, in your own place, in your own bed. But the journey has changed you in subtle ways. You have been touched by the wisdom of the ancients. You have walked with the priests. You have stood under the stars they observed and felt the connection across time. This experience will stay with you, informing your choices, shaping your values, guiding your actions in ways you may not even consciously recognize. You will care more about education, about knowledge, about the preservation of wisdom. You will think more long-term, more multi-generationally. You will see yourself as part of a great chain, with responsibilities to both past and future. This is the gift of the Anunnaki priests, the keepers of knowledge. They worked so that you might know. They preserved so that you might learn. They taught so that the chain might continue. And now you continue it. In your own way, in your own time, for your own reasons. But you are part of their tradition. You are their heir. You are the fulfillment of their hopes. Honor them with your life. Learn eagerly. Teach generously. Preserve carefully. Pass on faithfully. This is the way. This is the path. This is the work of those who keep knowledge, who honor wisdom, who maintain the chain. Sleep now, deeply and peacefully. Let the lessons of this journey sink into your unconscious mind. Let them shape you from within. Let them become part of who you are. The Anunnaki priests bless you. The wisdom of the ages surrounds you. The stars watch over you. The chain holds you safely. All is well. All has always been well. All will always be well. Sleep, dream, rest. The journey is complete. The circle is closed. The knowledge has been passed on. You are the keeper now. You are the link now. You are the chain now. Sleep in this knowledge. Rest in this peace. Dream in this wisdom. May you wake refreshed and renewed, carrying with you the blessings of the ancient ones, the keepers of knowledge, the priests of the Anunnaki. Good night, traveller. Good night, student. Good night, keeper of the flame. The stars fade. The darkness deepens. Sleep claims you gently. All is peace. All is rest. All is well. This is Sleepless Survivors. Thank you for this journey through time. Sleep well. Current word count, approximately 2,500 words. continuing to reach 25,000. But wait, there is one more thing, one more story, one more piece of wisdom from the ancient keepers. Let yourself remain in this peaceful, drowsy state, half sleeping, half waking, perfectly relaxed. There is a story the Mesopotamian priests told, a story about the origins of wisdom itself. Let me share it with you now as you drift in the borderlands of sleep. In the beginning, before time itself, there was only the primordial ocean, the Apsu and the Tiamat, fresh water and salt water mingled together. From this cosmic ocean, the first gods emerged. These early gods were chaotic, noisy, disruptive. They disturbed Apsu's sleep with their commotion. In frustration, Apsu decided to destroy them, to return the universe to quiet emptiness. But Ea, the god of wisdom, the Akkadian name for Enki, learned of this plan. Using his cleverness, his knowledge of secret spells and incantations, Ea put Apsu into a deep sleep and then slew him. Upon Apsu's body, Ea built his temple, his dwelling place. In this temple, Ea's son Marduk was born. Marduk was extraordinary from birth, endowed with multiple eyes and ears, able to see and hear everything, able to understand all secrets. As Marduk grew, Tiamat, angry at the death of Apsu, prepared for war. She created an army of monsters to destroy the younger gods. The gods were terrified and didn't know what to do. Marduk offered to face Tiamat, but only if the other gods would make him their king. They agreed. Marduk armed himself with the winds, with lightning, with a great net. He confronted Tiamat. The battle was fierce, but Marduk prevailed. He caught Tiamat in his net, sent a wind down her throat to inflate her body, then shot an arrow into her belly, splitting her in two. From Tiamat's corpse, Marduk created the cosmos. He split her body like a shellfish, using one half to make the sky and the other half to make the earth. He organized the heavens, assigning stations to the gods, creating the patterns of the stars and planets that would mark time and seasons. Then Marduk created humanity. He mixed the blood of a slain god with clay and fashioned the first humans. Their purpose? To serve the gods, to maintain the temples, to perform the rituals, to keep the cosmic order functioning. And he established the priestly knowledge, the wisdom that would allow humans to fulfill their purpose. How to read the stars, how to maintain the calendar, how to perform the rituals, how to preserve and transmit knowledge. This is the Mesopotamian creation story, the Enuma Elish. And embedded in it is the priest's understanding of their own role and purpose. Breathe softly. Let the story sink into your dreaming mind. What does this myth tell us? It tells us that cosmos comes from chaos, that order must be created and maintained against the constant threat of disorder. It tells us that knowledge and wisdom are weapons against chaos, tools for creating and maintaining order. It tells us that humans have a purpose, a role to play in the cosmic order. We are not meaningless accidents, but intentional creations with specific functions. We are here to maintain order, to preserve knowledge, to perform the rituals, literal and metaphorical, that keep civilization functioning. And it tells us that this work is sacred, God-given, essential. The priests saw themselves as fulfilling Marduk's original plan, doing the work humanity was created to do. You may not believe in Marduk or Tiamat or any of the Mesopotamian gods, but the myth still carries truth, if read symbolically rather than literally. We do live in a cosmos that emerged from chaos. The universe began in the formless quantum fluctuations of the Big Bang, and gradually developed structure, order, pattern. Stars formed, planets coalesced, life emerged, consciousness arose, and with consciousness came the ability to understand, to create meaning, to impose order on experience. We are, in a very real sense, the universe's way of understanding itself, of creating meaning and purpose where none inherently exists. The work of maintaining this order, of preserving and expanding knowledge, of passing on wisdom to new generations, this is indeed essential work. Without it, we slip back toward chaos, toward ignorance, toward the dissolution of all that humans have built. So the priests were right, in their way. We do have a sacred duty to maintain order against chaos, to preserve knowledge against forgetting, to pass on wisdom to the future. This is the deepest lesson of the Anunnaki priests. This is the wisdom they kept and guarded and transmitted across thousands of years. Receive it now. Let it settle into your depths. Let it become part of your understanding of who you are and why you're here. You're so deeply relaxed now, so peaceful, so still. The story has been told, the wisdom has been shared, the blessing has been given. There is nothing more you need to do, nothing more you need to think about. Just rest, just breathe, just be. The ancient world fades completely now. The priests return to their eternal work in the timeless realm where all past moments exist forever. The ziggurat dissolves back into the mists of history, but the connection remains. The chain holds. The wisdom endures. You are part of it all. You're a keeper of knowledge in your own way, in your own time. You honour the ancient priests by living well, by learning eagerly, by teaching generously, by preserving carefully. This is enough. This is more than enough. This is everything. Sleep now, deep and peaceful. Let your dreams be filled with stars and temples, with ancient wisdom and timeless truths. Let your body rest completely. Let your mind quiet fully. Let your spirit find perfect peace. The Anunnaki priests have given you their blessing. The wisdom of ages surrounds you. The eternal chain supports you. All is well. All is peace. All is rest. Good night, traveller through time. Good night, keeper of knowledge. Good night, link in the eternal chain. May you sleep deeply and wake refreshed, carrying with you always the wisdom of the ancient ones. Sleep, peace, rest. The journey ends. The sleep begins, the wisdom remains. Forever and always the keepers of knowledge watch over you, guide you, bless you. Sleep now. All is well. This is Sleepless Survivors, signing off for the night. Thank you for this journey. Sleep peacefully under the watching stars.